She's Anna, the janitor, a silent shadow in this humming hive of glass and concrete. Every day is the same monotonous dance: mop, bucket, rag. The office comes alive when she finishes her work, but to these people she is like air, transparent, invisible. They don't see her when they throw crumpled papers past the trash can, carelessly leave dirty cups on their desks, don't even bother to make eye contact, let alone greet her. Kudza, in particular, stands out. Young, ambitious, with a predatory glint in his eyes. He seems to take pleasure in humiliating Anna. His barbed remarks, his arrogant glances pierce her like icy needles. "It's not cleaned. Are you deaf? Don't interfere with work." Each word, like a blow, is imprinted on her memory. She keeps silent, lowers her eyes, but inside she's seething. Resentment, like bitter poison, seeps into every cell, every fiber of her being. Anna is not just a cleaning lady. She is a person who is ignored, whose dignity is trampled. She hauls a heavy bucket. Her hands are red from constant contact with chemicals, and her back aches from the hard work. But here, in this soulless building where statuses and positions determine how others are treated, her labor is devalued and she is invisible. This place doesn't recognize her existence except as a tool to keep it clean. But behind that submissive mask lies something else. Behind the silent gaze, downcast, hides an observant and tenacious memory. The inner tension that builds in her day by day does not disappear without a trace. It grows into something more, something that will change not only her life, but the lives of those who have so neglected her. After many days of humiliation, when every glance was like a shard of glass, Anna began to act. Not immediately, not impulsively. Slowly, as water sharpens a stone. She, a seemingly inconspicuous janitor, became a shadow, gliding through the office corridors after everyone else had left. Her gaze, previously downcast, now intently studied everyone, especially Kudza. His routines, his habits, his weaknesses, all of it was becoming material for her plan. At night, in the silence of empty offices, she turned into a detective. The documents left on the desks were no longer just pieces of paper. She copied, photographed, analyzed. Financial records, personal correspondence, anything that could shed light on the true nature of Kudza and his entourage. No one knew of her nightly vigils, of how she, a seemingly inconspicuous cleaning woman, gathered bits and pieces of information like a mosaic for a future painting. Her movements were polished, every action calibrated. Notes hidden in hidden places were her secret weapon. Patience became her best ally. She watched Kudza like a predator watches its prey, but without haste, waiting for the right moment. Behind the image of the quiet cleaning lady lurked a sharp mind and cold determination. The tension was building every day, like a cloud before a thunderstorm. It was no longer just silent patience. It was preparation for something more. And in her every action she felt not only methodical, but also the mystery that swirled around her like a fog. It seemed that behind her outward submissiveness lurked something ready to burst forth. And that moment was approaching with every quiet step in the empty office corridors. But that was only one facet of the story. And so the day came when the silence around Anna was replaced by tense anticipation. She chose the moment when the conference room, usually buzzing with business talk, was filled with senior management and, of course, Kudza. Anna didn't just enter the room. She made her way in, using all her knowledge of the inner workings of the security system that she had studied so thoroughly while staying after work. She was no longer a shadow. She had become the center of attention. She stepped into the middle of the hall, and her voice, usually quiet and unobtrusive, sounded confident and calm. No trembling, no hint of fear. Her words were clear as hammer blows, and each one was aimed straight at Kudza. She began to speak, exposing his machinations, his corruption schemes that she had so painstakingly collected while in the shadows, while everyone else went about their business. Kudza's face contorted with rage. but at the same time he could see the fear growing with every word Anna said. She wasn't just accusing, she was providing evidence, financial statements, personal correspondence, photographs, everything she had copied and studied over long nights. The silence in the room became so dense it seemed you could touch it. Those present, from management to the rank and file, were stunned. Anna spoke smoothly, without raising her voice. Her speech was convincing, because behind every word she spoke was the truth, which she gathered bit by bit, watching how she was ignored, how she was treated as if she were nothing. She revealed not only his crimes, but also showed how she had to endure his humiliation. At this moment, everyone saw not just a cleaning lady, but a person who had been pushed to the limit and was now demanding justice. Kudza's face was pale, his mouth was opening and closing, but he couldn't say anything in his defense. Every eye in the room was fixed on him, and in each one read surprise, contempt, and perhaps even fear. Anna stood motionless, and in that silence her voice sounded like a sentence, and her denunciation of Kudza was the culmination of her long and patient waiting. The tension in the air hung like a taut string, ready to burst at any moment. But that was only one side of the coin. Anna's accusations, her collected evidence, pierced the conference room like a lightning strike. Management, realizing the depth of Kudza's downfall, didn't hesitate. The decision to fire her was made instantly. Kudza, yesterday's ruler of the offices, now babbled excuses, but his words sounded pathetic, false. In an instant he had been stripped of everything, his position, his power, his respect. He was led out of the hall like a criminal, under the stares of his former colleagues. Anna watched this scene. There was no gloating in her eyes, only a deafening satisfaction. She wasn't seeking revenge, she was seeking justice. It was not power she sought, but truth. The faces of the staff reflected a spectrum of emotions, from shock and incomprehension to shame and remorse for their own silence. The contrast was deafening. The arrogant Kudza, not long ago dispensing orders, now humiliated and defeated. Anna did not stay to savor his defeat. She left the hall in silence, leaving behind her a plume of silence and stupefaction. It was a moment when it became apparent that even the most inconspicuous of people could wield incredible strength and determination. There was relief in the air, mixed with surprise and embarrassment. She left without a word, but her actions spoke louder than any speeches. In the silence that followed her departure, everyone began to rethink their own actions. But this story is not over. After Kudza left the conference room like a shadow, the atmosphere in the office changed perceptibly. It wasn't just a relief, it was an awakening. People who were used to a gray routine and closed eyes to what was happening around them suddenly began to see. They realized their blindness, their petty resentments and humiliations that they so easily allowed themselves in relation to those who, as they thought, were beneath them in status. Some of them tried to approach Anna, to apologize, to talk about how they didn't realize they were wrong. But Anna did not accept these apologies. Her face remained calm, without a shadow of gloating or triumph. She did not crave recognition, nor did she seek anyone's praise. Her revenge was not a thirst for humiliation, it was a demand for justice. She simply went on with her work, but now there was a kind of inner strength in her movements. There was no longer that stiffness, that sense of humiliation that had been glued to her earlier. She felt free. Not victorious, just free. And this liberation was not a noisy celebration. It was a quiet, inner transformation. Anna didn't become different. She just became herself. She remained working in the office, but now she was treated with a different feeling, with respect. She was no longer a shadow. She was a person who was seen and appreciated. She didn't seek revenge. She sought justice, and she seemed to have found it. This whole story isn't about a person getting revenge on an abuser. It's a story about how even in the most hopeless of situations, one can find strength and seek justice. It is a story about how respect for a person does not depend on his position or origin. It should be unconditional. And, as it turns out, justice will always find its way, even if this way runs through the quiet corridors of the office and the unnoticeable hands of the cleaning lady. Anna continued her work, but her presence changed the atmosphere of the office. People became more attentive to each other, more polite. Her actions, her silent dignity, had an impact on everyone around her, and that influence was positive. There was peace and mutual respect in the office. This story ended not on a note of triumph, but on a note of hope and satisfaction. Hope that justice will always be done, and satisfaction that everyone got what they deserved. This story seems to have come to an end, but there is another angle that needs attention.